You know, guys, sometimes I get lost in my own brilliance over here. Truthfully, I do. Sometimes I'll be sitting here and I'll give you some idea that comes out of my mouth, and when the clip gets done, I'll sit back and just go, wow, you make a really good point, Chael. Now, let me share with you guys one of my favorite fights ever. Talking about Eddie Alvarez versus Justin Gaethje. And I don't just mean that body of work and when it was done. Oh my goodness, you guys are everything that I envisioned or dreamed of displaying personally. But the lead into that fight, it was for the most violent man in the UFC, which was a reasonable title. The closest that we've ever come to is the world's most dangerous man, which is a moniker that stuck to Ken Shamrock. And somebody even did a special on him. I want to say it was ABC. But he got known as the world's most dangerous man. He took that moniker. He went through the WWE. You guys knew it was Ken Shamrock as soon as I said world's most dangerous man, even to this day. But this was for the world's most violent. I apologize, the UFC's most violent. Eddie Alvarez and Gaethje are going to fight. I don't know who decided to put that title on it. It kind of like predated the BMF championship, but that was very real and very legitimate. It was even contested. It was capped off, the crowning of the belt, Masvidal grabs the strap. I mean, it ended up being a very real thing, and I only bring this to you because I spoke to Eddie Alvarez 1 week before his fight with Justin Gaethje, which is where Eddie revealed to me that he created this entire title of world's most violent man, UFC's most violent man. I did not know that until Eddie told me. I thought much like the BMF or much like the world's most dangerous man, I thought that they had put that on there. It was just one of these really effective things in the world of marketing. Everybody that ever wrote or spoke about that story, including Gaethje and including Alvarez, talked about wanting to win that fight to win the title of UFC's most violent man. And I can only tell, I think that you guys understand that concept, just on any off chance that you don't, to explain to you how powerful and meaningful to a fighter a title is. It does not overly matter what that, you can fill in the blank. You're going to call it undisputed, you're going to call it interim championship, you're going to call it BMF, you're going to call it UFC's most violent. If you can win a title, that is the kind of thing that will drive an athlete to the most extreme limits. And I don't just mean physically, I mean mentally. I mean changing how much sleep you get, thinking every thought through, every bite of food that goes into your mouth. You will live a life on a pursuit to win a title. It's very, very relevant. Very relevant that you understand this. And Eddie Alvarez created it. I did not know. I found out 1 week before that this was him and Gaethje's doing. Now, I only bring to you that example because if you want to stand out in a crowd that's very crowded, you got a whole bunch of fighters. They're going to take their t-shirts off. They're going to put on 4 ounces gloves. They're going to follow the unified rules. They're going to get stale the day before. They're going to have social media and try to gain attention. They're going to have a little plug and maybe someday make it to a poster, right? If you're going to do all of these same things as everybody else, but you have to stand out and you have to stand above them. Being creative in the fashion that Eddie Alvarez did has been proven to be very effective. Now, a lot of things will fall on its face, but I just want to ask you, how far could you go with it? Earlier in the day, I was speaking to you guys about the potential for a 4-man tournament. I told you if that was going to happen, the athletes would have to come to Dana White. Well, what if, I'm just asking, what if, along the vein and the idea of what Eddie Alvarez already did, what if 4 guys came out and said they're in a tournament? What the hell is anybody going to do to say that they're not? I mean, could you imagine when Eddie Alvarez comes out and tells the world that he's fighting for the title of UFC's most violent man? Justin Gaethje comes on and says this fight is for the UFC's most violent man. ESPN includes it in a story. MMA Junkie and BJPenn.com put it in the headline. Could you imagine anybody in an official capacity coming out and stepping in front of that and saying, well, no, it is not. Well, they made that up. Could you imagine? No, of course not. That would be silly. That would never happen. What would happen if Sean Brady types? What would happen if Sean Brady is to get his next opponent? Oh, and by the way, he happens to read the dirt sheets and he sees somebody else at 170 pounds that's almost match up. What would happen if Sean Brady and company were to come out and tell the story, well, we're actually in a tournament. I'm actually taking on Chimaev and Gilbert Burns is over here taking on Rachmanov, but we're actually in a tournament. It's the reason we're fighting on the same night. the winners are gonna fight each other when this is done. Just what would happen? We would all believe it. We would all love it. We would all run with it. Do you think reasonably that somebody would step in the way of that? Do you think reasonably that Sean Shelby or Mick Maynard or even Dana White himself is going to come out and go, whoa, hold on just a second. We're not in a tournament. I'm not promising you the winner of Brady and Chimaev is going to take on the winner of Gilbert versus Rachmanov. Could you imagine that they would do that? Or do you think that it's more likely that maybe they say absolutely nothing at all, thus making us continue to believe this? Or they go, you know, that's a really good idea. Yeah, I'll put those two winners against each other. But what would happen? I'm just asking you. It's a way that they would stand out, wouldn't they? And I think that it's a story that people would really get behind. Just like I'm tied to this sport, I knew both the athletes. I know everything going on in the sport at all times, and it was not revealed to me until 8 days before the contest that Eddie versus Gaethje was not actually for the UFC's Most Violent Man. That was a moniker that Eddie put on it, and Gaethje ran with it. The hell do I care what the difference is? I mean, in all fairness, what do I care what the difference is? I'm not a detective. I don't sit down and go read clues. I don't scroll through everything that any fighter ever says and go find out and verify. I'm looking for a good story. I'm looking for one that's standing out. You're going to have 11 fights, 22 athletes every 7 days. They get the same amount of time. The guys that go last will have up to 25 minutes. Everybody else is going to have 15. They're all going to get on a scale before. They're all going to have their walkout song. Their opponent's going to get the same. They're going to get greased down. They're going to get in the ring. How is one guy going to stand out? How? He finishes his fights. You guys made that term up. Shut up with the he finishes fights. He stands and bangs. Shut up with all that. I think that that's a very compelling idea. It won't be done now. It won't be done now because I just said it, so it won't work. But what would happen? What would happen if somebody got an opponent and found two other guys within the weight class and came out and declared? And then what if they were even smarter? What if they somehow had their managers talk to these other guys and say that they're going to do it? I mean, it happened to work out with Gaethje, with Alvarez. They didn't have to get together. Gaethje was smart enough to know what time it was and go, yes, this is for the title of the UFC's Most Violent Man. But what would happen if 4 guys just agreed? And they came out and told us. They didn't go to the UFC. They didn't get this done. They didn't get this written down. They came out and told us we're in a tournament. What if it was 4 reasonable guys that we would all accept? Do you understand the kind of headlines? Do you understand how those 4 guys would stand out? Do you understand how a high tide would lift all ships? The problem is, you go get these 4 guys, one of them's going to be selfish and want all the attention. He's not going to understand that he can be one of 4, but those one of 4 are going to sit in front of 556 other athletes under contract. It's an interesting concept. I could share stories with you. I'm on the cusp. I'm biting my tongue. I could share ruses with you. I could share things that I've done through the media and turned them in to a reality. If it's a very powerful concept, who would want to get in front of a moving train? Who would want to get in front of promotion if your job is just that, to promote? Sometimes it takes a little bit of creativity. But I don't hate that idea. I'll use Sean Brady just by example. Whoever Sean's next opponent is, I ask that Sean go and stare at the roster and see somebody else within that weight class that gets matched up, comes out, those 4 guys there in a tournament, come tell the world, and something tells me that after they do tell the world, it will be made a reality.